Welcome to another episode of Educating Homebuyers, the podcast. I'm your host, Brady Haye, and my mortgage team has over 9 years of mortgage experience here in Des Moines, Iowa. Whether you're buying your first home, upgrading, investing, or simply just curious about the market, this show is all about helping you and future homebuyers feel informed, educated, and comfortable as you take your next step. Each week, I sit down with real estate professionals, past clients, and local experts to unpack real stories, real advice, and what you actually need to know when buying a home today. Without further ado, let's get into today's episode. Today's conversation is all about what really happens behind the scenes when a home goes from the idea to the finished product. We're talking today about systems, the planning, and the expectations, the communication that most buyers never see, but absolutely feel throughout the process. If you've ever wondered what separates a smooth, well-run home build from a stressful one, or why, frankly, some homes feel simply more intentional than others, this episode will give you a much better understanding of what it looks like and long before the keys are handed over. Today, I'm joined by Derek Lyons. Welcome to Educating Homebuyers.
Well, thanks for having me on, Brady.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm excited to chat with you. And first off and foremost, thank you for making time out of your day, because this was a sort of last minute throw together to help do me a favor. But my hope is that this conversation will be super fruitful for both of us. And excited to dive into what you've built and what you've created. No pun intended, because that's what you do for a living. But
yeah, hopefully we can do it some justice. I'm sure that I'm probably not the nicest dressed client that you've had on.
You know
everybody's suited and booted and everything else.
Casual is my that's my MO. Always has been. And it's funny, I've got this event coming up in January, which this will be posted prior to that. This event that I'm doing in January is with Rich, an insurance agent I work with, and you know very well. He's always dressed to the nines, right? And he's always spiffed up. And I tell him every time I see him, is you just make me look like a slum because. Yeah. But I also said when I got into lending that I don't want to be that stuffy guy that's sitting behind a desk and, wearing a suit and tie and is intimidating to come up to. I feel like, at least that's what my hope is that the casual approach is kind of the way that I've built my process to. I want it to feel approachable, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it's fair. I mean, I think at the end of the day, no matter what you're doing, what industry you're in, if you're in sales, if you're not, being authentic is one of the most important things you can do, right?
Yeah.
So, same way, Rich is rich though. And it works for him. I think for the most part, I'd probably look like a clown if I tried wearing what he wears,
But it's not me, right? Granted, I'm a little overweight and all these other things. And so some of them clothes fit a little tighter than I'd like. And
people give me a hard time. I'm either super casual like this or golf attire.
Yeah.
I was actually thinking, what should a home builder even dress like? I feel if you're suited, that's just weird because it's this guy, can he relate to homeowners? Does he know anything about the construction industry? If you're dressed too much like a knuckle dragger, it's does this guy understand any aspect of the business side of things? Yeah. If you're dressed too business oriented, does he know anything about the construction side? So maybe for your listeners, they can comment and just let us know how a home builder or mortgage lender should dress.
Comment below. What would you guys prefer? And hopefully the answer is what we're currently wearing, because I don't see myself changing anytime soon.
Neither one of us probably will, but yeah.
I love it. Well, listen, let's kind of start off. Give everybody a background. Who are you? What do you do? What's your company? And how did you get to where you're at today?
Yeah, so a little bit about myself. I grew up as a farm kid in north central Iowa. I think a lot of my tendencies or who I am as a person sort of derives from that upbringing. Mm-hmm. It's if the sun's shining, you make hay type of mentality. I'm a go-getter. I like to bring energy to whatever I do. Not a lot of things are perfect, but you sort of just have to do what needs to be done, right?
No doubt.
And so grew up as a farm kid in North Iowa, went to community school at Nyack for a hot minute, dropped out after a semester and a half. And much like most, mid 20-year-olds, then I found myself thinking, what's my next thing? What am I going to do? And sort of where do I want to take my career? Did several things leading up to getting into construction. And when I got into construction, I think was sort of, I was pounding nails. I worked on a labor crew for a guy. We were 4 or 5 man crew up in north central Iowa that, we would take a full year to build a home.
Got it.
Very just kind of slow moving, but it allowed me to see the whole process take place, learn a lot about the construction industry. I sort of stayed glued to my boss and just kind of listened to conversations that he had with other contractors, other vendors, with clients. I sat in a lot of client meetings, even though I didn't really have any business being there. He kind of let me do that. And let me just see what the industry was all about. And I think when I got into construction after doing various other things, I sort of just felt at home, you know, no pun intended. And so taking, you know, the agricultural background that I had, farming wasn't going to be my thing. I knew that wasn't going to work. So I needed to find something else, and construction just sort of, it felt like home right away. So after pounding nails, working on a labor crew, I then started selling construction. I got into the business side of it, and that's when I really fell in love. So I mixed sort of my desire for business. When I went to school, it was like accounting, business background stuff. I thought I was going to be a lender. But I kind of mixed that like drive for business with working with your hands and doing prideful work, you know?
Yep.
And so then I was like, okay, like there's a real future here for me. You know, this is like 2018. So I was 27 years old. I had a kid on the way and was like, you know, we need to start figuring things out. So, so sold exterior construction, which led me then into starting Showtime. I started Showtime as Showtime Roofing.
Okay.
That's still actually technically the name of our LLC, DBA Showtime Homes, but started Showtime Roofing in 2020. It was in August 4th is the birthday of it.
Okay.
Everybody told me I was an idiot for starting a business in the middle of a pandemic. I think most people who start businesses are somewhat lunatics anyway.
There's no right time to do that,
so
right?
That sort of fits the mold.
Yep.
And then I started a roofing company in August, which like with winter right around the corner, probably also wasn't a smart move, but it just felt like the right time. When I started Showtime, it was sort of because I think a lot of people in the contracting world is like, oh, my boss was making all this money, and it's like, it's time for me to make the money, you know?
Right.
For me, it was just, I sort of had all this pent up energy, and I sort of like saw the way that I thought a business could be ran in the construction world, which we'll get into more. But inevitably, when I started Showtime then in 2020, it was like, hey, prove it to yourself. Then if you feel this way, go do it, you know? And at that time, I just felt like if I fell flat on my face, I could always just go work for somebody else, given the experience I had, and go from there. So, I started Showtime Roofing in 2020. Kind of ran with just doing roofing and siding gutter work for a couple years. As you sort of build a reputation for yourself, then we had more people asking us to do more things, right? You know, other trades, other remodel work that was outside of just the exterior kind of restoration scope.
Sure.
And one thing led to another, and we sort of stumbled into home building in a way, got into the first build, and there's a lot of things about that could have went a lot more smooth. Those that know my story intimately will know all about that, and I've shared about it other places. But kind of got into that first build, and just it sort of like reignited a fire in myself, and then my business partner Sean Delman as well. That was like, hey, there's more here. It's a little bit more fulfilling with the home build process versus just, you know, going and doing a roof for somebody or replacing their siding. And just kind of fell in love with that side of things. So in 2023, we hired Matt Buman, who's our vice president, has 20 plus years of building experience in full home building, GC and commercial build, and all sorts of stuff. And when we brought him on board, then it was sort of like instant validity.
Thing here.
Yeah, in the home building world, right? So Sean and I knew that we had a good grasp on how we wanted the business to be ran. I sort of knew the beat we wanted to march to, but then it was, hey, we need a guy that can actually handle and facilitate, building homes.
No doubt.
And so, Matt instantly brought on all the vendor connections, and he had spent several years vetting these vendors that he was using. Knew, which ones were the bad actors and whatever. So all of that hard, learning curve part of starting a home building business, we sort of didn't have to go through.
It was taken care of already.
Yeah. So Matt brought that piece, and Sean and I sort of yin and yang in the office, and it's been a good fit since then. So,
that's awesome.
Yeah.
So really, 2.5 years into the full-time building process.
Correct.
Which is something that we talked about in the introduction, I guess. Like that, it sounds to me like from your guys' standpoint, one of the big things you focus on is that process. Let's give some inside look into that. So, and we don't have to go into literally every single detail per se, but what's like your guys' big emphasis you put on when you get somebody who wants to build a home with you guys? What are some things that differentiates you from the competition?
Yeah. So we'll start with, you see somebody run a commercial or whatever advertisement that says they're different or they're better. And I think, kind of back to that authenticity piece, I guess, is if it's my firm belief that if you say you're going to be different or you say you're going to do better, then you better do something different and better that, actually supports that. So,
no doubt.
So I guess, in a nutshell, the process and sort of the drive behind Showtime Homes was there are a lot of people out there that can build a house. I mean, there's a ton of contractors that can take you from start to finish and hand you the keys to a finished product. But in my opinion, there's just a ton of times where you hear clients go, we really like our house, we're happy with it, but the experience sucked.
Sure.
Our contractor was unresponsive a lot of times, didn't get back to us in a timely manner. Another one that's obviously huge is we went way over budget. We're really happy with what we ended up with, but we were planning on $700,000. We ended up at $850,000, and I can't even really tell you why.
Probably hear that more often than you're proud to admit.
Yeah, and I think our industry, in the building industry, there's a low barrier of entry. I mean, almost anybody, I'm a good example of it, can become a home builder.
Sure.
So like, what's that mean?
Yeah.
And because of that, you do get a ton of bad actors, and there's a ton of people that, through the Homebuilders Association that I'm friends with that also do really great at what they do.
No doubt.
But so for us, it was really just the experience side then. If we're going to build high-end luxury homes, it's not good enough just to put a really good product out there, pick really cool tiles and countertops and whatever. We want to get done and have the client have had a good experience, right? So our process then, because of that, is the people that work on our team need to have good energy about them. Like that's one of my things. I joke with people all the time, like you can't have a company named Showtime and just be like a fuddy-duddy.
Monday.
Right?
Yeah. Right.
So I mean, you should have some sort of energy about it. Smile, when you come into meetings. Yeah, a little bit of a spark. Like you're building, in our case, anywhere between, $750,000 to $3 million plus homes, So, while stressful at times, that experience should be fun and exciting.
Without a doubt.
So there's a lot of things that we do within our process that try to tend to that like human aspect of the client, what they go through building a home, albeit stressful. It should be exciting and fun at the same time.
Totally agree. It's cool to hear you say that, because I actually, with my mortgage process, went through something very similar where, I'm coming up on 10 years of doing this, and probably year 3 or 4 in, I pretty quickly had this like aha moment where it's like, all right, there's a lot of different places people can go to get a home loan, right? You can go to your bank, you can go to a credit union, you can go to a website online that has really good commercials on the Super Bowl. Like there's like lots of places you can go to get a home loan. So I had to identify and figure out like, okay, if I really want to be the person somebody calls, what do I do to be different?
Yeah.
And that's where I looked at, it's like, okay, well, what am I doing when I wake up every day and go to the office? What are the things that I'm doing that really is a selling point and things that I have control over? Right. That's the other big thing is you, for example, can't control lumber prices, right? Yep. I can't control mortgage rates. Things like that are things that are out of our control. And so I looked internally and like, all right, what are some unique things that I can implement into my process to make it different? And it aligns perfectly with what you're saying. And you guys build is like, what are some things that we can control when somebody calls us that, really make us stand out,
The crazy part is a lot of times those are like the easy, low hanging fruit things as well.
You say communication. It's funny you say that, because like, any business really, it's like you always hear like, what's the one thing that makes them stand out? It's like, oh, they communicated really well, or why was your experience poor? Because they didn't communicate, right? And it seems like, from my perspective, it is such a bare minimum, but it is it's the difference maker for a lot of people,
Yeah, and I soundbite moment here potentially, wink, wink. No, but it's I think communication, but not just when things are going well or as planned. I think. It doesn't matter what industry you're talking about. I mean, you could be an insurance salesman, mortgage lending, home builder. Yeah. But I think what matters is, hey, Susie, the way we had this, these cabinets configured, we have to change it because the dishwasher ends up, it's going to be too close, whatever, right? Like when things happen, how do you communicate that?
Yeah.
And what I kind of joke even sometimes, like Showtime Homes, my own company had a post something about like a stress-free experience or whatever on Facebook. And I commented on it like that's not true. Like it's never stress-free.
Yeah.
And I think that's where, the separation is
but it's transparent
from one builder to the next is, hey, not a finger pointing thing of it was our mistake or his mistake or their mistake, but it's like
100%.
This is something that came up. Here's how we're going to address it. Here's what we see for solutions. And this is what I think next steps should be.
And how many times do you have that where it comes up and you've already figured out the solution before you actually present the problem to the client? Right?
Yeah.
Like that's what I try to do is like, I can't prevent one-offs from happening in the mortgage experience, whether it's somebody, taking out a debt they shouldn't have or quitting a job or whatever it is. There's situations and things that happen that are out of our control, and same thing on your front. And frankly, even things that are in our control, we're human beings and there are mistakes that are bound to happen,
yes.
And the thing that I've chosen to admit is like, I am going to be taking ownership in that. And the point that I like that you made is that you're not going to point fingers. You're not going to blame somebody else, even if it was somebody else's fault. I always try to look at things internally, right? And it's like, what could I have done differently in this situation to prevent this from happening?
Yeah.
And then on top of that, like the start of my point is like, if there is a problem, identify if there's a solution before making people aware of the problem, but then being transparent about what you're navigating.
Yeah, and I think, one of the things, by no means do I wanted to sit here and tell people how great we are, because I think I should take pride in what we do and how good we are. But another aspect of, I think, home building that really doesn't get, it's not near as sexy to talk about, but it's not always necessarily just with the builder to client connection. It's also builder and our vendors, which the reason why that matters to a potential client listening to this or somebody that's going to buy a home with you is the relationship between builder and their vendors is extremely important. With you want people on a job site and that are building your home and constructing these things. You want them to care, and you want them to be, not that everybody's always going to be in a good mood, but you want them to have a positive outlook on what they're doing.
Yeah.
And Matt, our VP, that he handles the inner workings of our subs and vendors on a day-to-day basis with our builds, and he always jokes that if there wasn't any problems that ever came up, then I wouldn't have a job. Sure. And so inevitably every day, when things go from a conceptual design or a blueprint that's on paper to in the field and being built, there's going to be things that you have to navigate. And how do you do that?
Without a doubt. And probably arguably more common than things going smoothly, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of things that aren't even necessarily problems that have to get brought up to the client, but
more than a problem,
just
right?
Things we have to work through all the time.
I would be curious, is there ever been an instance where from point A to point B, you've ever had something go exactly how you thought it would?
No.
And
one of the interesting aspects of our business is every time we construct a home, it's the first time that home's been constructed.
Because it's unique.
I say that literally because we design each one of our floor plans uniquely to our clients. So that's one of the things we do. And it's something that we've been sort of adamant about ever since we got going, was we weren't going to just repeat build and let people select a new flooring or cabinet pulls and then call it custom. If we're going to build custom homes, we truly want it to be unique and custom. So to that point, every single time we're in a build, it's the first time that our plumbers have ever seen that blueprint. Yeah. It's the first time that our trim carpenters have ever seen this layout of what these clients want for built-ins and all this stuff. So there is, every single time, that every build we have, there's things like that to navigate. Yeah.
Talk through that. What's that design process look like? And maybe you have somebody on staff that handles that for you. I don't know what that looks like in your team, but I feel like that's probably one of the most divisive, stressful, but also really exciting parts of the process, right? Making a vision come to life. And I'm sure the client, it's different from client to client, because sometimes you probably get clients that have an eye for certain things, and other people are like, I don't know what I want.
Right.
So just give some insight into that, I guess.
Yeah, you're exactly right. It is different from client to client, but nonetheless, our roadmap of sort of how we know we need to navigate getting from point A to point B is still sort of the same, right? So you're also correct in saying that we have people that handle that. Thank goodness, because if I was the one that had to take care of the design,
imagine you were designing every house.
Yeah, not necessarily the creative type. But so our process looks a lot like just sitting down and asking a lot of questions up front.
Yeah.
you know, when someone comes to us, whether it be via a realtor connection that they had or somebody just hears about us, however they come to us, our first meeting is always what we call a discovery meeting. And I'm sure a lot of other builders are like this, but we sit down and we go through, sometimes they last 3 hours, where it's, you know, take us room by room and tell us how you live in your current space, maybe what you want that livability to be like, what you would like different, you know. Sometimes people don't know what they want, but they know what they don't want.
Yeah.
You know, so they're like, I definitely don't want, you know, a double sink. I want just one big basin sink.
Sure.
You know? So just whatever those things are, we sit down and we just have that discovery meeting where we hash through all of that, and then we sort of get to work from there.
I think one of the cool things I've noticed too with living in real estate, this is something I noticed. I've owned 2 houses now that I've actually lived in full time, but the longer you have certain things, the more you know whether you like them or dislike them, right? And it's hard to, and you can't almost expect yourself to know exactly how you want a house to lay out without having experienced that situation, right? So like my first house that I ever owned, for example, I didn't even know to look into this when I was young. I was 21 when I bought it, I think, and the townhouse that I owned didn't even have a bathroom on the main level. And like me being young and naive, I had no like thought like, oh, that would be not a problem, but like something that I would dislike. And then I learned after living there for a while, it's like, it'd be really cool if this had a bathroom on the main level, right?
You start thinking.
But I think that to your point, like I think that's something that if even if now is not the moment where you're considering and watching this and you're like, hey, I'm going to build a home in 2 months. If it's down the future, something you dream of doing and building a home is start to take mental notes of things that you really like and dislike, you know?
Absolutely. It is. And that part of it truly is fun. The part of, we have anywhere from a client that comes and sits down with a hand-drawn, floor plan essentially versus the client that comes in and just says, you know, I think we need like 3 bedrooms on the main level. Besides that, I don't really know, you know? And so it is a lot of fun for our team, even for myself, to sit in those meetings and just kind of listen to that process and how that works and how it is different for everybody, because some people have lived in several different homes. Some people have already built before, and not that process was necessarily bad, but they sort of understand layout of things, how they did it, what they would want to change, and that's fun too. So yeah, just seeing those different aspects of, does somebody know what they want or don't want, or do they, and just how we navigate that.
And how rewarding is it once you've taken them through it and they get those keys on closing day? Like, I feel like from my perspective, and keep in mind, this is really the first in-depth conversation you and I have had, but I would imagine the transition from being a roofing company to a home builder, like the best, most rewarding part is handing over those keys and being a part of that emotional thing that you just put the time and effort and money into building this place that they're going to call home and get to create memories of their family in. Like that's gotta be the best part, no?
All the cliche things, all the sayings, man, they're true. Like it really is, it truly is rewarding. And I mean, the fact that we get to call it work, you know, it's a blessing. I get to personally go to handing the keys over to a personal friend of mine that just built with us. And he, Andy Ray with American Dream, no free shout outs. I don't know if we can get something out of him, but
we will not tag him below.
Yeah. You know, he does our roofs for us, even on our other homes. And so the fact that he's a business owner in the industry, works on our other homes, and now has been able to go through the process like as a client. And then, you know, there's sort of a saying in business a lot of times, like, don't do business with your friends or whatever, you know. This has been a case where it's gone the opposite. There were some things early on that they had to work through on the design side where there was a couple hiccups and this and that, but Andy, being a business owner, kept a level head and sort of understood what we were trying to achieve. And it's been a good experience for him. And he asked me if I would come tomorrow, you know, when they go through it, and just kind of like share that moment together. So I'm really looking forward to that one.
That's so cool. Yeah. I just have to imagine that's got to be the best part, especially after the hard work. Because that's the thing that most people won't touch on, is like, you talk about how, you know, I think the word you used was like, it's cool that we get to call this work, but that doesn't mean it's easy, right?
Yeah.
You guys work your tails off to make this all happen and logistically put all the pieces together. And you've got an incredible team that you know, are not cheap to employ either.
Correct.
And it's a big commitment that you've taken in really a short amount of time. You know, like you really only dove into this 2 years ago, and now what's an average year look like for you guys? How many, like, if you were to paint the picture perfect way, how many homes are you designing and getting from start to finish in a year, would you say?
Yeah, I love that question. It's one that I can never answer in a short, concise way, just because. So one of the interesting things about building custom homes is, in the production world, you can sort of say, we're going to go dig 40 holes. We have 2 floor plans we're going to use, and we're going to put 40 homes up, 20 of each, right? And This is our plan. We know basically exactly what our costs are going to be. Here's our forecast, and let's go attack the year. For us, an address or a home could mean, $750,000, 1,800 square foot on the main, 3-bedroom up, 2-bedroom down ranch. That's fairly simple. Yeah. $1 million doesn't go far anymore. But it could be that, or it could be an extremely custom, $2.5 million, $3 million house and up, right? Where like it's hard to say how many of those we would do, right?
It's not every day you run into a lead or an opportunity on that.
Yeah, exactly. So in my mind, I sort of wrap it up from a revenue standpoint of just what I think our team can handle and what we want to handle, because we don't want to get out over our skis either. And I think for us, a good year is going to be between 15 and 20 million probably in revenue. Yeah. And the cycle of building a home obviously carrying over from calendar year to calendar year, but that's what I suspect our income, our revenue to be top line is 15 to 20 million. And I think our team right now, we can handle that pretty easily. So
yeah. I love it. Word of mouth. What's your marketing tactic look like? How do people even discover Showtime Homes?
Yeah, I mean, since neither one of us are Rogan yet, our podcasts aren't reaching
What do you
masses.
mean? I get so many views.
I said yet, we're on our way, but yeah, word of mouth. A lot of boots on the ground approach. We have very successfully done the last 2 years in the home show that the HBA puts on. Yeah. You were able. I don't know if you came to last year's or not. But
I actually didn't know.
You came this year though.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's a really neat event. It's an incredibly powerful tool for a home builder to be able to showcase what they're all
capabilities
about. For 10,000 people to be able to walk through and see that thing, really put us on the map. So I would say right now that's been our biggest contributor to our success is doing last year's home show and then this year's home show. One of the interesting things was last year we did a very modern sort of Vegas to Iowa style of home. Sure. And then this year it was much more warmer tones, a lot less masculine, I would say. It just had an altogether different vibe. And so it was really neat for people that came through the home show in 2024. And then for the folks that then came back to the home show in 2025, they were like, oh, wow,
It's the same builder.
Yeah, and I think it's important to touch on, just because something that I was sort of naive to in the very beginning was builders sort of get pigeonholed into a certain stylistically or by design, right? And so we had a lot of people say, the house was really cool, but not my style, and it was you guys do those super modern houses, and it's well, we got range, we can do different things. Yeah. We can design different things. Matt's got a plethora of experience in 20 plus years building different style of homes. So that was important for us.
That was the cool thing for me to see, at least this year's. I hadn't seen last year's, like you said, but I did see that style as something that I would enjoy. Obviously I'm not about to spend the kind of money that it costs to build that house right now, but that.
There's only $2 million.
Well, since I'm Joe Rogan now, the AdSense revenue on this thing is through the roof.
Easy. Yeah.
But no, I think that was the cool thing that I really liked. And obviously I walked through the other show homes this year as well. And yours really stood out from a sense of it felt like this is where I could see myself laying my head at night and watching a football game. And those are the things that me as a consumer, I see that when I'm looking at a show home like that. And yours really had that homey feel. And like you said, not everybody is looking for that in their home, right? But I'll tell you, as a Midwest Iowa, Northwest Iowa kid, that's what I love. Yeah. I was raised in a ranch, and that's it's funny how where you're raised, and if your memories are positive there, that transitions to what your vision is for what you call home now too. And that place is incredible. It really was. You did a great job with that.
Yeah, and I'm glad you touched on that and bring that aspect up too, because it is interesting going from, you see a house get built and that somebody had to make that tile selection. Somebody had to choose that cabinet, right? And when we talk about intent and process, it's like, how do you get there?
Yeah.
You know, so that one was really interesting. And from the aspect of when you build a custom home, obviously you're working with the clients that are going to live there. You're working with them to sort of peel away what it is that they want, what their style is, and what they're trying to achieve, combined with, you know, Alex, our designer, and Matt, our VP, who he has his hand in design too, but just sort of their opinions, directions they think that you know, they guide the client down that path.
Yeah.
But this year's home show house, we partnered with Tim Schutte on it, who is he was a partner in the development and then Exit Realty real estate agent. Mm-hmm. He built the house as a spec. Basically, we partnered with him on it. But, you know, so he's financing this deal and basically trusts us to build a $2 million house. And it wasn't anything that we took lightly, but he sort of just gave us the reins from everything, like from what it looked like on the exterior, what the floor plan and layout was going to be. Yeah. And we sort of took a gamble because a lot of people will tell you, if you're going to build a spec home, in other words, a home that you're building that is not, like, nobody owns yet. Mm-hmm. They're going to, so you hope somebody walks through, sees it, and wants to buy it. When you're doing that, it's hard to decide what somebody's going to want, mm-hmm. you know, and are those selections and everything going to make somebody feel some type of way when they walk through it?
Right.
And so a lot of people will tell you, you know, you need at least 3 bedrooms on the main because, you know, if it's a younger family, so on and so forth. Yep. Like, there's certain ways to lay out a house where you feel like you can grab the attention of a majority mm-hmm. of people. And going into this year, knowing it was going to be around a $2 million house, we're like, hey, I think we need to switch this up a little bit and try to gear this thing more towards potentially empty nesters, people with older high school kids, you know, somebody that we feel like is going to be able to afford this and want the entertainment value that basement and everything offered. So my point, or why I get so long-winded in describing that, is our team, you know, Matt and Alex really took that burden on themselves to not only lay out a floor plan that was completely original, but pick selections and make that home feel the way you said it felt when you walked through there, so that somebody could see themselves living in it.
When it's such a higher risk, right? When you don't have that buyer already lined up, because you're subject to the people that walk through it, you know?
Correct.
And it's a different story when you've got somebody that comes to you and you get to design what they're envisioning. You really kind of have that burden already off your plate. Whereas now, like, you're having to design a home that's going to be subject to the market.
Right.
Not only that, but you're in a price point that limits the buyer pool because there's just less people that frankly have that kind of money to be able to support something like that. And kudos to you for being able to create a product that was desirable. And I guess I don't want to say kudos yet. Did you sell it?
Yeah, we did.
There you go.
We had it pending before the show started. So
fantastic.
Yeah, we held a event prior to the show starting the weekend before with the Iowa State game. People come and watch it, and we did a fundraiser for Make-A-Wish. So,
very cool.
It was our second year in a row. We did it in last year's home show house too. But during that event, there were some clients that we had just built a custom home for them to have as an Airbnb. Mm-hmm. And they came to that event, fell in love with the house, and ended up making an offer, and we had it sold. So
what a blessing! That's so cool.
And they're tickled pink. They've been tremendous clients, obviously repeat at this point, and we're going to build a pool and a pool house for them out back.
Very cool.
It's been a really cool experience.
And that's all you can ask for, right? Is happy clients that continue to cycle into more, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, one of the things, I don't want to pivot this back to me asking you questions because this is your podcast, but how do you see the market from the mortgage lending side? And when people come to you and start talking about what they could potentially be approved for, and when they're building a custom home, you know, we can kind of go back and forth on this a little bit, but what does that look like from you as a mortgage lender? Just because I feel like that piece together is so important.
Without a doubt. Yeah. I would tell you that first and foremost, I don't have as many leads in the luxury market, so I don't have as much experience having those conversations as much as I think it translates regardless of the price point you're in. But here's what I would tell you is that in the mortgage world, what I find is that most of the time you end up qualifying for far more than what you're comfortable with. Regardless of the price point you buy in, the price point is driven by, income and assets, right? So how much income do you have? How much assets do you have saved for a down payment? Those kind of factors. And regardless of the price of home you're looking at, it comes down to a comfort level standpoint. And that's the big thing that I am putting a big emphasis on when I'm having my consultations with my clients is like, just because you can doesn't mean you should.
Yeah.
And I think you would relate to that as well when you're looking at, picking certain selections or going up to a certain price point. Is just because you can doesn't mean you should. And so it's like working backwards is the way that I approach that, is like, all right, where do you want to be? Because I, as your mortgage lender, don't know your leisure spending. I don't know how much you're spending on a monthly basis as far as, just the stuff that you enjoy doing in your lifestyle. I only look at your income and your credit and things like that. And because of the referral sources that I've built, I'm very, very fortunate, and a lot of the clients that I work with already have a good qualified situation. And so it's not often where I'm capping my clients. It's more them deciding where they want their cap to be. And it's so I work backwards on that. I say, hey, where do you want your budget to be? And if you haven't had that conversation, let's talk about that. And then working backwards into deciding a maximum pre-approval so that we can then move forward with confidence and comfort. And then also and again, if most of my business I would tell you is in resale, but when we're doing that, it's like, okay, well, do you have an understanding of even what a payment includes and how high that can go? And there's a lot of factors that drive that. And I just had an example last week where the client told me their comfort level was like $1,500 a month, but they could have easily gone up to, $3,000 a month if I would have only looked at their qualification. And so what I basically had to have a candid conversation with them is you probably can't, in today's market anyways, this is end of 2025 at the time of filming, you can't get a $400,000 house at a $1,500 monthly payment. It doesn't happen, right? And so it's working backwards, and why I always start with their goals rather than just telling them their max pre-approval is I don't want them to go and write an offer on a house and not be comfortable with it. So where I would start if I was the one, let's say I was your preferred lender and having a conversation with all of your clients, is I would always start with what's their comfort level,
right,
and identify that prior to me just telling them you're pre-approved up to $4 million if you really want to go build it,
right,
without them understanding and being educated on what their comfort level is. And that's why I come up with the name of the podcast of education, and why you'll see on all my socials, informed, educated, and comfortable. That's to me, if I can die on a grave and that be what I'm known as a mortgage lender who made sure that their people were comfortable with the decisions they were making, that's all I can ask for.
Yeah, education is such an important piece of selling. And regardless if people want to see themselves as salespeople or use the word sales, I mean, it's sales, whether you like that word or not. But education is such an important piece. I had a boss one time when I first got in the construction game, and I'm not even going to give them the credit of saying their name, but he told me straight to my face, don't educate, just sell. I had this elderly client that I was working with through an insurance claim, and she ended up not using us. I didn't get the sale, but I felt good about the fact that she was an older lady and just really didn't understand the insurance process and getting her roof replaced.
Yeah.
And it was sort of difficult because we were working through her and then her son or son-in-law or whatever. But regardless, I got back to the office after having my meeting with her, and I was like, "Oh, did you get the sale?" And I was like, "No." And I was like, I'm trying to walk her through the process and make sure she understands it before we, sign this $20,000 roof or whatever it was. And he looked me straight in the face and said, "Don't educate, just sell." And I think
I would have walked out.
Yeah, well, I did shortly after. I only lasted at that company for 3 months.
Yeah.
Or a little bit longer than that. It was probably 4 months. But ever since then, though, it has been, I operate in the same sense of, and Matt does when he's having conversations with our clients too, is we try to inform them as much as possible. A lot of our material that we have in educating homeowners or potential build clients with us is not only how our process works, but just what is the difference between a walkout and a flat lot, or just all of those things. We want you to feel prepared.
Sometimes they don't even know that those options exist, right?
Yeah, we just want you to feel prepared.
And I think the best example I have in that front, and why, to your point, I don't feel like I'm a salesman, and why I use, frankly, the term, instead of calling myself a loan officer or mortgage sales or anything like that, I use mortgage advisor. Because really that's the position I put myself in, is I'm advising what options you have. And the best example I have to compare to what you're at is right now we're in a declining rate environment, right? And so if I was truly, truly a salesman, I would call every single one of my past clients that have bought in the last 3 years and tell them, you need to refinance right now.
Right.
But what most of those conversations are, just in the nature of where current rates are and everything like that, is we need to keep this on our radar, but don't pull the trigger yet, because there's a chance it could continue to get better. And you wouldn't believe the conversations I'm having and saying, hey, your rate's at 7 now. We could get you down to 6.2 or 6.1, whatever it is. It'd save you maybe $100 a month. most salesmen would say, let's do it. Let's, sign on the dotted line. Let's go now.
Right.
And most of the time I'm telling them like, you know what, like this would make me money if I do this, but like, I don't know if it's quite the right time. And you wouldn't believe the amount of times I'm uncovering when I'm having those conversations too, that maybe this is still a short-term home for them and they might move in a year or two,
right?
Which means even more that it's not the right decision to pull that trigger, and if my boss is hearing this and says that like, Brady, you need to sell more. I'm sorry. Like that's not my MO. Like as much as, I'm probably losing money as far as my own revenue by not selling on a refinance. My concept behind that is like, I hope that my people feel that I'm doing that for their best interest. And then when it is time, they still call me.
Yeah, well, the beauty of that is you get to lay your head on the pillow at night and feel good about what you did.
Without a doubt.
I think when I was first getting going in like the business side with Showtime, I had to think a lot about that. And Des Moines, it's a large enough market, but it's pretty small relatively. Town. When you start talking about reputation and that sort of thing, and a lot of what we've, we're a pretty young group. A lot of our employees are in their 20s still. I'm only 34. Matt's in his early 40s. Like we're a relatively young group when it comes to building, in an environment where a lot of builders are just older. That's just the way it works. But like having that youth is like, I want to be in this market for a long time, doing things at a very high level. Mm-hmm. And if you're sort of sleazing your way into more sales or whatever early on,
it's not sustainable long term.
Yeah, what's the longevity look like for that? For sure.
Completely agree.
And again, not to like sit here and just say we're the best, but like you do have to have some intention behind how you're going to operate if that's your intent.
So. Well, I think the cool part about what you and I both will admit is like there are other places that do an incredible job too, right. And you're not going to be the right fit for every person.
Yeah.
That's a hard decision to make.
A really good example of that is we've had clients and it was really hard for me to grasp mentally early on, where we had clients that just simply wanted more square footage for less money. Mm-hmm. And we would have somebody, regardless of the dollar amount, just say they were prepared to build $1 million house.
Yeah.
But the house that they wanted for us to build would have been, say, 1.4. Mm-hmm. And it was out of their budget, where they could go to more of a production style builder. And I don't say this in a bad way, but just somebody who isn't built like we are, that they can not cut corners, but just build things more inexpensively. So for instance, a builder that builds, like I'll use Sage, for instance. I got a lot of respect for Chris Pickard. And what they do is they build a lot of the same floor plans over and over again. They have the ability to certainly build beautiful custom homes as well. But because of that, then they have much more controlled costs. They can do things at a more inexpensive level than we can.
Sure.
When I told you earlier in this podcast that we're building one of one every time, there is some cost and value that comes with that.
No doubt.
Right? So
when you think about even just a material standpoint, right? If that builder is going to build 10 of those specific homes, in a year, and they kind of know that that's already going to be in their plans, they can bulk order all of those materials to match that. Yep. Whereas you're custom ordering all of your materials, like that in itself is a price advantage, because the place that you're getting those materials from probably cuts you a deal if you buy in bulk. No?
Correct. Yeah, exactly. And then, the guys that are doing the rough-in plumbing know exactly where that drain's going to go. And they're more efficient with their time. Yeah, there's cost savings in repetition. Mm-hmm. And so there's a break-off point where building a true custom home maybe does or doesn't make sense for people. So the reason why I tie that in is not every client is necessarily the right client for us. And I'm a try to make it work guy. I think a lot of people in the trades world are, right? Where it's just like, I can make this work. Mm-hmm. And the reality is you're doing the client a disservice and you're doing yourself a disservice by trying to fit a square peg into a round hole. And sometimes early on in that process, when we're vetting people, we just need to tell them like, hey, I'm not sure that we're probably the right builder for you. You know what I mean?
Then how many times do you catch yourself spinning your wheels for days, weeks on end, trying to make that one deal work? When if you would have let it go,
opportunity loss,
you could have really just been focusing on the things that actually was a fit in your corner. Mm-hmm. I had a conversation with my coworker this morning. He, for the last 3 days, has been trying to make a refinance work for this lady, and the DTI was too high because she had 2 cars in her name. She was trying to sell one, and frankly, her rate and where we are today wasn't a big enough difference for her to make sense anyways. And I just had to tell him, I was like, buddy, like, as much as you're, still trying to make this deal work, it's not time. And so just like push it to the side. She will do it eventually.
Have that honest conversation.
But work with and be efficient with your time, and work with the people that are going to be transacting right now. And how often do you spin your wheels trying to impress somebody who is going to probably hate you regardless?
Right.
And just, it's a happy balance of finding the right clients and the right fit. So that's valuable
and just
stuff.
The more you're able to, I think, invest that mental energy into things that do make sense, to your point, like the more you start seeing those rewards down the line. And it was a learning curve that I had to go through as well. But I think a lot of business people do.
Totally. Well, this has been great. I appreciate the conversation. Tons of insight. I think you and I both kind of said before we started filming, we could probably sit here for 2 or 3 hours and talk about detailed stuff. And frankly, would love to have you come back again, and we'll, maybe get more specific about other parts of the process. But just for everybody that's made it to this point in the episode, or maybe seen a clip of this, if somebody's considering building a custom home, what's the best way to reach out to you guys and your team?
Yeah, check us out on our website. It's probably the easiest. There's a form fill on there, showtimehomes.com. You can find us on socials. We're active on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok.
Subscribe to the podcast.
Yeah,
you got a podcast.
Must Be Nice podcast. It's sat idle for a little while, but I need to get that going again.
This is your accountability. Now that you've said it, you got to do it.
I know. I'm a big personal accountability guy too, so I do need to. But our website's the easiest. You can do a form fill on there, and then you can. I think our office at Showtime Homes emails on there as well if you want to just email us. But that's the best way. So.
I love it. Well, thanks for being a resource not only for this podcast but just for this market as a whole, and doing things the right way. That's what it's all about, and I'm excited to see where you guys kind of continue to take things into 2026.
I'll leave you with our Showtime ethos, just because I feel like it's important, and I don't want to kill the end of your flow here.
No,
but,
I love it.
Yeah, it's interesting, and I think without sharing it, you just probably don't get the full like Showtime vibe. So I'm going to read it real quick for you. All right. So context behind this was December of 2020. Showtime was still a one-person company. It was just me running and gunning with some subs. And I was thinking to myself at the time, I was listening to a lot of audiobooks and stuff, and I was like, regardless of where this company ends up going, I think we need to have some sort of guiding light of like, what are our principal values, core values, all these things that people put vinyl stickers on the walls, what do they mean? But I need to come up with something that is truly like who Showtime is. So the Showtime ethos goes as such. I will hold myself fully accountable for my own actions. Although I operate within a team, I will strive to make sure my contribution is unmatched. My only fear or intimidation is not realizing my full potential. I will attack problems big or small with confidence that I was put on this earth to solve the issue, and if not me, then who? Complacency is my worst enemy, and it is my absolute need to seek out innovation, obsess over efficiency, and execute daily. As an individual, I may take backward steps, but as a unit, Showtime does not take losses. Regardless of my past, I am now a winner, I am confident, and with a positive mindset, I am not only good, I am great.
Man, there are too many breakable things in this room for me to be that excited after hearing that. I'm going to run through a brick wall for you guys. That's so cool. And talk about something you can stay continually proud of, and hopefully your team builds off of that too, and it gives them, like, how much more likable are you to have like somebody come work for you because you have that mindset. So
people have brought it up, but it's just fun. It's fun to talk about. It's fun to rely back on as things come up. Stressors. You're dealing with stuff. It's like, hey, we said we were going to hold ourselves accountable. So
I love it. Well, thank you again for coming in. Appreciate you. Everybody, thanks for watching. This has been another episode of Educating Homebuyers. We'll see you guys next week.